It was midnight around 12:50 a.m. on November 26, 2010. It was a cold winter night, and the town was asleep. There was no person or even a car on the road. The library door creaked open, and the lights went off, followed by a clanking of the keys which locked the door. The person who appeared from inside the library was Harry Clear. He was on a call, and said to the person on the other side, "Yes, I know I have gathered all the information by myself. I will put my case up in front of the committee. I hope this will at least take the burden off my chest." The call was ended, and he was on the pavement walking towards his home. Just as he reached near the lake, he realized something strange. This was a sense of a person following him. He focused on hearing the voice behind him as he walked, and yes, he was sure there was someone following him. In a state of confusion, since he did not know who the person was from, where is he following him, or what does he want, he increased his pace and tried to escape the danger, or at least go to a place where he could find someone for help. He did not know. Never in his life would he have ever imagined what was about to happen. "Stop there." He heard this from behind. Strangely, it was the voice of a female. His heart raced and he increased his speed. "Stop right there," I said. "Don't you understand?" He heard this voice again. He took a pause and tried to look behind to confront the person. He tried to gather the courage to do so. Just as he turned around, he was hit by a rock. It hit him so hard on the forehead that he fell to the ground. He tried to regain his consciousness, and just as he looked up, he could not believe who he saw. It was someone who he once thought was the only love of his life, his only support and friend. "Brenda," he exclaimed, "why would you do that?" Not wasting a single moment, Brenda hit him in the face with the same rock again. She hit him again and again for so long that his face was crushed and his movement stopped. Seemed like she had not been in her senses. She went numb and froze at what she had just done. She stood there rubbing her forehead again and again. She was crying and confused. She could not believe she had just committed the worst crime in the world. She had become a murderer, a label that would haunt her throughout her life. She tried to come back to her senses and looked for a way out of this situation. She dragged the body to the lake and tied some heavy rocks to it. Then she slid the body into the lake. The body slowly sank while she watched the last bubbles of air pop in the water. She then went to clean the mess she had just made. She cleaned the remains of Harry from the road and cleared the crime scene. She left nothing that would link her to any such case. She tried to wash away everything that could be done. She did it and rushed back to her apartment. She changed her muddied and bloodied clothes and tried to act as normal. The next day she was at work, acting as normal. However, there was something unusual that everyone noticed. This irregularity will soon lead to shocking revelations. Only a few days later, a group of friends were out on a picnic. They decided to go fishing and went to the lake. Just when they arrived there, they found something that they screamed to death. It was a dead body. They quickly called 911. The police arrived just a few minutes later and took the body out of the water. They sent it for forensics and looked for the evidence all around. After several hours of searching, they could find nothing important. The autopsy report revealed the cause of death to be a forced hit on the head, followed by drowning in the water. The case was ambiguous, having no direction followed. There was a lot of uncertainty, but many things were yet to be disclosed. Harry Clear was born in 2001 to a poor family. He was born and raised in the small town of Brearcliff, Borough in England. Born in a proletariat family, was raised alongside his 4 other brothers. The family, belonging to the working class, could not afford to educate their children, and all the elder brothers of Harry went into sports, since they were muscular and active. Contrary to his brothers, David was more a nerd. Most of his time was spent reading books and articles. He had developed a strong taste for literature and history. Although he could not afford expensive books, he would lend them to the library. Considering his passion, his parents decided not to let the spark in their child die. So they took on double shifts and worked harder to support Harry's education. Harry, belonging to a poor family, remained shy throughout his life and could not build up the courage for face-to-face confrontations. Many of his fellows termed him an introvert and would give him the space he required. He, however, was a wizard when it came to writing. Many of his friends and fellows would envy his writing skills, since he had a strong background in writing and reading. After a few selections from notable colleges, he was finally able to receive a scholarship and the Briarcliff Community College. It was like a dream come true. He was excited to start this new journey of life, but there were some difficulties for him too. It was hard to get adjusted to the new environment. Also, since he was on a partial scholarship, he was not sure whether he would complete his studies or not. This concern of his proved genuine later. He had had an academic background full of inconsistencies. He got admission in the fall semester. He tried to cope with his insecurities and went to the new class with new ambitions. It was his first ever interaction with Brenda Martin, a young, charismatic, and gorgeous European history teacher. Brenda Martin, belonging to a wealthy family, was a well-reputed lady in the town. She was the daughter of a multi-millionaire corporate executive. His father bore all the expenses of her education and even let her do a PhD. During her PhD, she did not maintain a good reputation and became famous for an inappropriate relationship with her supervisor. Although she could have had a better opportunity in the town, she could not wash the stains away from her character. She moved to Briarcliff and got a chance in the Briarcliff Community College. Soon after a few years, due to her academic excellence and administrative skills, she was appointed as the acting principal of the college. However, she also used to teach a class or two because teaching was her original job and her passion for life. He was cunningly intelligent and resourceful, as evident from her quick success. Also, she was a bookworm and spent most of her time reading and writing. She was also famous for her writing style and preferences. She was a reputed writer. On the contrary to all these attributes, she was also a psychologically not-so-fit person. She had a complex personality disorder, which was identified by the psychologists later in the case. They also found huge narcissistic tendencies in her and termed her with a manipulative, assertive, and dominating personality. She always wanted validation for the genius being she was. This habit of hers also led to having intense but short-term relationships. She was around 38 years old when she first met Harry. This meeting would change the entire course of their lives. During her first class with Harry, she was quite impressed by him. When asked a question in class, Harry answered it in such a way that she thought of him as a special case. She also invited him to write for the college's literary magazine. He too was caught by Brenda's personality and wanted to make an impression in her mind since she had already made one in his. This special praise boosted Harry's morale, but little did he know that he would be killed due to these seeds of relationship. In the next few weeks, they would often be seen together in the office, and Brenda would assist him with all sorts of subject-related work. This made his classmates a little jealous of him. As time passed, this spending time in the office together increased, and the formal subject-related conversation was turned into endless discussions for hours over multiple topics. This growing bond between the two and the emphasis on just one subject made Harry weak in other ones. Brenda, on the other hand, had found her prey. It was Harry. In the next few days, their bond grew even further. Brenda would take special interest in Harry and would often lean at him while going through his documents or notes, allowing the scent of her perfume to excite Harry's nostrils. This would raise certain questions in his head. One day in her office, while they were discussing something about Harry's future, Brenda put her hand on Harry's, telling him that she would not let him down. Over all this time, she did only one thing, and that was creating Harry's reliance on her in all aspects of life. She would tell him that the talent hidden in him wouldn't be wasted, and she made him believe that all this was done due to goodwill of hers. With passing time, they were getting closer and closer, and from the walls of the office now moved to the external literary and other events. She used all her tactics to make him believe that to sustain and be successful, Harry needs Brenda in his life. She made him her addict. He truly begins to believe that he is nothing without Brenda, and she becomes the center of his world. By the next fall, he would spend less time with friends and more with Brenda. He had fully adopted her style in writing, preferences, and all other related things. Things were moving forward, and then finally one day she invited him to her apartment. The purpose was to make him study for other subjects too, in which he fell behind. The evening was quiet, and the environment tense. They had studied for a long time and felt a little tired. Brenda excused herself to make some tea. She brought it, and both of them sat and discussing some topic. While they were in the conversation, Brenda moved slightly closer to Harry. She also lowered her voice, as if suggesting something. She lowered her voice so much that she talked only in a whisper now. She partially leaned at Harry, and he could sense her breathing. It was when she brushed her hand over his that both of them felt a layer of goosebumps. They let themselves go with the flow, and ultimately got intimate. This was their first ever physical intimacy experience. By now, the formal boundaries between teachers and students had faded away. There was no reason to stay back now, and they took their relationship forward. The hours-long office discussions were now converted into long weekends together. Brenda also showered Harry with expensive gifts. One other thing she did, which she would regret later, was that considering the falling grades of other subjects, Brenda tried to convince other professors to recognize the hidden genius in Harry's personality. She also forced them to give him good grades, which eventually skyrocketed. All this increased his dependence on Brenda even more, yet he was happy. He was getting everything he wanted, from monetary to academic, all kinds of benefits. But one day, ironically, Harry thought about his actions and found himself buried under the weight of his conscience. He realized the changes in his personality and found himself to be a mere imitation of Brenda. His style has somewhere been lost. He started facing an identity crisis and began to behave erratically. This behavior of his soon came out in public in the form of anxiety and frustration. Brenda, noticing this change in his behavior, doubled her tactics and kept him in turmoil. She was known for her manipulative techniques and influencing the youngsters. She was performing her magic at its peak. She would sometimes send Harry lavish gifts while other times cruelly criticize him. She also would convince him that he needs just like a patient needs drugs for survival. She also convinced him that his success is linked to Brenda only, and that it is only her who can make his way out of this misery. All was going well for Brenda, but this sense of regret had a severe toll on Harry's mental health, which his roommate even noticed. He did discuss it with his roommate and told him everything about his relationship with the acting principal. One day when they argued in the office, she reminded him of how he was a nobody and that she had made out of him what he claimed to be. She also blackmailed him about the grades thing and told him, if this news got out, you may lose everything. So he kept quiet for a few days. However, it was getting loaded on his health. He isolated himself from the world and confined himself only to his room. With time, he was about to crack with the weight of this relationship. One day, out of nowhere, a faculty member showed up at Brenda's office. She discussed the academic success of Harry with her and asked her permission to put it up in the college's newsletter as a motivational story. This hinted something, Brenda sensed. She was startled at this. She was reminded of everything she had done for Harry and was worried their secret might get disclosed. In this frenzy, she did something she never should have. She called Harry to her office and confronted him with this. She blackmailed him of being exposed and warned him that if she got caught, she would not spare him either. But something strange happened this time. Contrary to her expectations, she heard a reply she never anticipated. Harry said he was fed up with everything and thought it was wrong whatever was going on. He also told her that he wanted to end this and would talk to the relevant committee and would face any consequences. She did not expect this. It stunned Brenda. The next day, she was informed that she had been called to a meeting with some unfamiliar kind of agenda, and she realized it was the end of her career. A woman of such narcissistic tendencies and with a sense of pride over accomplishments at such a young age, she could not at any cost afford to lose everything she built at such a young age. She spent the entire day in agony and finally made up her mind. She came out of her apartment, picked up a rock, and drove in her car. Since this was a blind case, the police tried to manage gathering the evidence. They talked to the relevant people and interviewed some suspects. After almost a week of investigation, they had enough evidence. Number 1, the rock with which Harry had been killed was found in the trash bin near Brenda's apartment. It narrowed the suspicion down to her. Also, the soil on the rock matched that of her garden. Also, the police tracked her car with the CCTV camera, and it contradicted the false story she had told the police. She tried to spend a normal life, but a guilty's conscience needs no accuser. She was trying to flee, as evident from her huge withdrawals from bank accounts. People around her also felt some sort of tension and unusual behavior of hers. She was not normal after the disappearance of Harry. Finally, and most importantly, the statement of Harry's roommate about his relationship with Brenda, as told by Harry himself, was a great turnover in this case. The IT experts also found emails exchanged between the two that hinted at an inappropriate relationship between the two. It also showed some manipulative activities. All the evidence was presented in court, and finally, after a short trial, the court found Brenda guilty and sentenced her to life in prison, with no possibility of parole. The case was finally rested, but the small town of Briarcliff would be haunted by it for a long time. What do you think about this case? Please do let us know about your views in the comment section. If you have not subscribed to our channel, please click on the subscribe button. Also, if you like this video, hit the thumbs up. Stay tuned for more videos.